Welcome back to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. I'm your host, Sal Greco. And on this edition, we're going to be talking about all the news you've been hearing about or haven't heard about in the last 24 hours. If you're watching us on Rumble, please hit the Rumble button, hit the like button. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, please hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. And if you are listening on any major podcast streaming platform, please hit the like button, share, or subscribe. And with that, let's get into it right now.
This morning, I advised the Governor General that we need a new session of Parliament. She has granted this request, and the House will now be prorogued until March 24th. Over the holidays, I've also had a chance to reflect and have had long talks with my family about our future. Throughout the course of my career, any success I have personally achieved has been because of their support and with their encouragement. So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
So there was the Associated Press covering Justin Trudeau resigning. And listen, you knew that there were going to be changes, not just here in America, but in other countries, and how they're going to adjust now that Donald Trump is the president. He's a force of nature. Say what you want about him, say what you want about the movement, but the policies, that's what will either make or break the way the world goes. Obviously, the tariffs will be a problem for Canada, along with how they're going to deal with their own border, which is our border in America. So, you know, there was a lot of rumors coming in to once Trump won that this may happen, and it did happen. And I actually believe that Trudeau should have left a long time ago, but the Canadian voters, some very much so low information themselves, we're grabbing and grasping for this utopia. Hopefully, this will be a signal to the rest of the world that if you have weak leadership, your country will be more than likely not prospering and you'll be looking for a change. And this comes as no surprise as Trudeau was gradually declining over time. But now we're going to go back to what I love to talk about here on this show, New York City. Why? Because it is so corrupt there that you just scratch your head and go, this can't be, can it be? But it is. So we have a new mayoral candidate stepping up to the plate. His name is Jim Walden. He's a former prosecutor in the Eastern District of New York. I guess a relative unknown as far as we describe him in political sense. But he is known to the law enforcement community, and he seems to want to do the right thing, but he'd be up against a big field right now running for mayor, because we already know you have the swagger man with no plan, Eric Adams, allegedly Andrew Cuomo. You're probably going to have Maya Wiley and all these other crazy progressives trying to run in the Democratic primary. We have my pick, Curtis Sliwa, in the Republican side. And then we might have some wild cards, and they're going to run independently. So here's Jim Walden. So let me go through his statement on X, what he said I believe a day or two ago. The post actually is a repost of Jim Walden's statement, but it's from a friend of ours on the Sal Greco show and co-host of the Finest Unfiltered podcast, John D. Macari, at John D. Macari. He posts breaking news, candidate for at NYC Mayor, Jim Walden, at Jim for NYC, releases a statement in regard to NYC workers who were terminated for non-compliance with NYC's COVID mandate. Jim promised to hire them all back with back pay and an apology. And this is what he wrote. Here was a special message, and right here it says, to right the wrongs inflicted on public servants who refused vaccines on principle during the pandemic, I will rehire them when elected as mayor. And, it goes on. There's a whole statement and there's other content in there. If you want, you can read or go to the post that John put up. But here, as it states right here, the three main commitments he wrote. As mayor, I commit to three things. One, for those who refuse vaccines for sincere medical, religious, or personal reasons, I will welcome them back to city service with an official apology on behalf of the city. Two, I will give them back pay. Three, for those who file lawsuits, I will direct my corporation counsel to evaluate the merits of each case expeditiously and for appropriate cases settle on fair terms. This will be my policy as mayor. You have it in writing. Hold me accountable. This sounds real good. And I almost want to say, yes, let's get behind Jim, but there's a problem. Jim Walden, who I follow, I'm not going to lie, I do like some of the proposed policies. For the last 8 years, we don't know where Jim Walden has been. For the last 7 years now, going into 8, it's been Curtis Sliwa, who not only challenged Eric Adams to become the mayor back in 2021, and it was Curtis Sliwa who originally had stated that he would rehire anyone that was terminated under this policy, and he said he would put everyone back. And it's Curtis Sliwa who has repeatedly been on air on WABC radio, where he has his own show. He goes on Sid and Friends in the morning. He's on John Katz's show. He's on for about 15 to 20 hours a week. So he's got plenty of free press. And I could tell you to go to the WABC radio app or go online, listen to his shows in the past and now. He is very much for not only rehiring everyone, but settling the cases. Now, when there was an issue in New York City over migrant shelters, they were putting migrant shelters everywhere. Some in these, we're going to call them middle class, working class areas. Some across the street from schools where children go to, where parks where children go to. And, the migrant shelters have brought nothing but a headache and crime. It was Curtis Sliwa who was out there with people from the freedom movement. May I add, because I believe the freedom movement is some element of this group is trying to back Jim Walden, who's a relative unknown, like I said, politically. But it was Curtis Sliwa who was out there, and between his radio show and between his social media and the Guardian Angels and his rallies, which he attended numerous rallies. In fact, he was arrested a couple of times just for being at these rallies and being against the migrant shelters, which he had 7 of them removed because Curtis was the one that helped pave the way for the right lawyer to represent the constituents of the area. Curtis has been out there for the last now 8 years. He's going to be running for mayor again. While this was all going on, where was Jim Walden? That's just a question I'm going to pose to anyone. Now, I'm not saying I won't welcome Jim on the show, but obviously this kind of almost plays like a ploy to a small base. Now, this base is not low information, but if we flip the script, when I always discuss Eric Adams, who says the craziest things that you could think of, and we're going to get to that in a little bit, but Eric plays to the low information voter because New York City is full of low information voters. In fact, the voter registration cards are 7-1 or 7-2 in favor of Democrats. If a Republican or an independent were to win, which the last one to win was actually Mike Bloomberg, who spent millions of dollars of his own money to run that campaign, you're going to need people in the middle and liberals or Democrats to jump on board. We now have ranked choice voting, which is also something that is a nightmare. It's done by rounds. So it's a first choice, your second choice, your third choice. And Jim Walden, who I predict even by the time a primary rolls around, how is he going to be anywhere near the top 1, 2, or 3 choices when right now he just came into the picture? He was nowhere to be found for 8 years. Curtis Sliwa, who has been known in New York City for the last 46 years with his guardian angels, and he's out there every day pounding the pavement, also holding Eric Adams accountable. He's all over the radio discussing him and the failures of his administration. How is Jim Walden, who just making a statement, is kind of pandering to a small group which already knew Curtis Sliwa was actually going to reinstate them if he were to win? I think this as an election issue would be a complete failure. If anyone tried to say rehire these people because of a mandate and make this a election issue, you will get slaughtered. New York City is, unfortunately, in my opinion, favoring like the rest of the country, stating that this vaccine was 70% of the country almost stated that it was correct and they were for it. New York City is even higher percentage. Bringing this up, trying to rehash old wounds is not the way to go. If this was to be an issue going forward, the way I would phrase it is, we have a problem employing people in all these agencies. Think about it. The fire department, the police department, the sanitation department, civil service jobs. Nobody wants them. But we terminated people that had plenty of experience and would bring it back if they were rehired. So we have an employment problem. We can't get anyone to take this job, but we have thousands of people that we may have illegally fired as far as the New York City Corporation Council is concerned, the New York City government, but we could just bring them back. And then that will elevate our numbers. We'll get experience back. So that is an angle and a better way of approaching this than to say, bringing up old wounds and thinking you're going to win this battle all these years later. I am in favor of everybody getting their job back. I am not for any mandates, but I know New York City is, was, and will always be. So do not make this the issue, because you will probably not even end up in the top 4 or 5 of this ranked choice voting. If Jim Walden wants to come on and take a couple of questions like this, by all means, Jim, you have an open invitation. But like I said, as far as who will become the mayor in the future, that really depends on how New York City will vote. Is the low information voter going to dominate, or are the centrists and, we'll say, conservative Democrats going to come out in droves and finally change their ways of voting and say, we need a change, we need somebody who's not corrupt and for the people? Is it Jim Walden? I don't know. It could be Jim Walden in the future, but we're going to jump from the mayoral statements here in race to something that will affect the mayoral race, and that is crime statistics, public safety, which should be probably the number one agenda since New York City is full of crime. But we have a mayor that says it's all about perception, and the police department heads that say they want to control the narrative. So let me put this up on the screen. Here's Reza Chowdhury at Reza C1. By the way, he's a fantastic follow on X. Follow him, and you'll thank me later. But here he is with this post. The violent crime rate in NYC subway is up 80% as compared to 2019. Right here it says, NYC subway violent crime rate per 1B rides 2019 versus 2024. This chart is very alarming. Now, it says 2024 is partial year based on, January 1st to November 30th as the actual data, and the source is the MTA. So the year here, it says year 2019, murder rate per 1B riders, 1.767, rape rate per 1B rides, 3.534, robbery rate per 1B rides, 285.630, assault rate per 1B rides, 191.991, violent crime per 1B rides, 482.921. Now, compare this to 2024. The murder rate is 8.267. The rape rate is 4.593. The robbery rate is 377.528. The assault rate, 478.570. The violent crime rate, 868.958. So the change, the murder change is 367.91%. The rape rate is 29.98%. The robbery rate, 32.17%. The assault rate, 149.27%. And overall violent crime, 79.94%. That is the actual numbers. So in reality, when you look at that whole chart, what Reza's trying to tell you is that is the real number in the last 5 years, which would mean the pandemic and then Eric Adams. Now, Eric Adams likes to put up these big fancy charts like Kathy Hochul, MTA, when they're huddling up and telling you that crime is down, jobs are up, the city's not surviving, it's thriving. He puts up these boards, these big number boards behind him and everyone else standing there, and he'll say crime is down if you eliminate 2021, 2022, 2019. Just, hey, Eli Manning was a great quarterback. He had 2 great years. He won a Super Bowl in 2 years. But the rest of his career, he led the league in interceptions 1 year, then another year. But hey, great quarterback, probably as good as his brother. What do you think about that statement? Okay, so that's what Eric Adams is doing. It's called gaslighting. That number is so troubling and alarming and disgraceful that they're not being honest and transparent with the public. Those are the real numbers, folks, and it comes from the source, the MTA. But they will come to you with these big billboards behind them telling you crime is down if we take away 2020 and 2021 or 2019, because if you add it all together, that's the real number. But don't take it from me. Don't listen to Reza. Just take it from Eric Adams. Next time he's up there, you'll hear that he'll say crime's at historic lows. But if you minus 1 year or the other year, we're really on par with the greatest time ever in New York City. Perception management, as Marlon Bethel best coined. But there's more when it comes to crime. Here's a chart and a post by Sam Antar, at Sam Antar, whitecollarfraud.com. Please, if you're watching this, you're listening to this, go follow Sam, because he is very informative, very analytical. And he doesn't lie to you. He was a convicted felon. But guess what? He also worked for the government. He's brilliant. And this is a complete stripping of Eric Adams' bizarre narrative that crime is down. So let me start with this post on X from Sam Antar. Memo to at NYC Mayor Eric Adams. Stop gaslighting New Yorkers on crime. You omitted the following crucial facts. Note, 2024 numbers exclude 12/30 and 12/31, while 2023 and prior years are full year numbers. Violent crime up at least 2.4% over 2023, 23.6% since you took office in 2022, and 32.2% over 2019, the last full year before the pandemic, and the implementation of discovery reform. While at best, index crimes, violent crime, and property crimes are down 3.1% this year, they are up at least 19.6% since you took office and up 28.5% since 2019. While you tout a decrease in murders, this improvement masks a disturbing shift. The 16 case reduction in murders in 2024 coincides with at least 1,318 additional felony assaults, a category that includes attempted murders. This statistical sleight of hand ignores a crucial factor. The difference between a murder and an attempted murder often comes down to the skills of trauma surgeons rather than criminal. A shooting only counts when bullets strike flesh. This means 1. Missed shots don't count. 2. Spray and pray incidents with no casualties are excluded. 3. Drive-by shootings without injuries aren't recorded. 4. Shots fired into occupied buildings or vehicles aren't counted unless someone is hit. 5. If the shooter has bad aim and misses the intended victim, it's not counted as a shooting. The FBI numbers are inaccurate. Take, for example, its 2023 violent crime numbers for NYC. The FBI claims that violent crime dropped 8.9% in New York City, while the NYPD claims violent crime increased 2.4%, resulting in undercount of over 6,900 violent felonies. The FBI numbers indicated a 9% increase in property crime, while NYPD reflected a 1.1% decrease. All my data is sourced from official NYC, New York State, and FBI crime statistics. And there is your chart, and it is clear as day that Sam Antar is telling you the truth. So while Eric Adams is in the perception management business, many of us are in the reality business. This is what myself, John McCarry, Eric Dim, Sam Antar, Marlon Bethel, Curtis Lee, the list goes on and on. We have been telling the public this for now, it's 4 years. From 2021, when Eric Adams took over until now, you have been bamboozled by a guy that likes to talk like he's slick, dresses very nice, but in the end, he's an empty suit, and he's just saying and doing whatever he can to continue his grift, which also included getting indicted. But we're going to put that aside. Perception management is what this administration has been dealing with. Crime is down. Do you feel that crime is down? Do you think when you go on a subway that you wait for a train, that you should be shoved from the back and end up on the tracks as a train comes? Because that just happened not too long ago. Do you think that you should be burned alive or set on fire inside a moving train by some illegal immigrant that had no business even being in this country? Because that also just happened. But Eric Adams will tell you, don't point to those two incidents. Those are random, and they don't occur every day because crime is down. But it's Eric Adams' city and the setting that he has made for the city that has made it that these incidents are almost like could happen at any time, and in this setting can prosper. That is the difference. You weren't seeing this in the Bloomberg era or the Giuliani era. Could it have happened? Yeah. Random act of violence. You're right. But overall, people felt very safe because they weren't walking out and dealing with someone stabbing you in a store because you're a postal worker and killing you. And my hearts go out to all the victims of these heinous acts that New York City legislation, New York State legislation just don't care. The party goes on for them. They just want to go out and party, as we know, and have documented at length on this show. And actually, speaking of the mayor and his mayoral race, we have an article that came out, and Eric Adams is now focused on his, I guess, frenemy, Andrew Cuomo, former governor of New York State. New York City Mayor Adams rips into ex-governor Andrew Cuomo over bail reform. You're going to have to answer these questions. This is by Craig McCarthy of the New York Post. Mayor Eric Adams is throwing jabs in the already crowded field for the Democrat primary, but is focused on a candidate who hasn't even entered the race, Andrew Cuomo. People who are running, they're going to have to take claim for the stuff that they did when they were holding office, Adams told Politico in a sit-down interview published Monday. Who was there for the original bail reform? Who signed some of these procedures? You're going to have to answer these questions, he said when asked how he would run against the former governor. Adams told the outlet he plans to informally kick off his re-election campaign, which has yet to even launch a website, by going on the offensive and targeting the controversial bail reform signed into law by Cuomo in 2019. The three-term Democratic governor who resigned in August 2021 in the face of sexual misconduct claims, which he denies, has long been rumored to be eyeing a political comeback. Sources have said he would attempt a return to political life by challenging Adams for the Democratic nomination in June, seeing a path to City Hall as Hisner fends off a number of corruption probes, low poll numbers, and a historic indictment. Sources have said Cuomo has been uninterested in challenging Adams, but would step in if he was forced from office or resign. The former governor has been working behind the scenes with his supporters to lobby business interests and try to gain favor in the Black and Jewish communities. But so far, Cuomo has yet to join the race, with political pundits saying each week it could happen any day. Those in Adams' camp, though, appear to fear a Cuomo challenge, with the campaign drumming up plans to attack the former governor, despite more than half a dozen challengers already having announced they run in the primary, including City Comptroller Brand Lander, former City Comptroller Scott Stringer, State Senator Jessica Ramos and Zelnor Myrie, and State Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani. This is all premature, Cuomo spokesperson Rich Azzopardi responded to Adams' remark in a statement to Politico. But it's worth noting that in 2023, Mayor Adams dismissed the bail reform debate as a bumper sticker slogan and endorsed Kathy Hochul's bail reform package, he said. Every campaign is an assessment of a candidate's ability to manage and to match their rhetoric with their performance to improve the lives of New Yorkers and prove they can get things done. Yeah, so, what can I say? Eric seems to have his focus on, I don't know, his own freedom. I mean, now he's attacking Cuomo because he feels the heat. Because in his own mind, what I believe is happening is Eric believes he's not going to get in trouble. He's not going to face any repercussions in his criminal cases. He's sitting up there. From what I understand, he's got people reaching out or has reached out to Steve Bannon, of all people, and his camp and all his underlings, we'll say, scattered across New York City, and then trying to get that back to a character like Boris Epstein, who's is, we don't know, legal advisor to President Donald Trump. And of course, Boris is somebody who would be in this world because he handles all of the legal issues with the campaign and President Trump, apparently up until a couple of weeks ago. So if Eric was trawling for a pardon, that is the avenue he would take. It was also reported apparently he was supposed to go to the New York Young Republican Gala back on late December, and the only reason he wasn't there, Ingrid Lewis Martin was indicted that week, and news hit that night. So rather than face the music, of course, Eric was probably somewhere in New Jersey, because he doesn't reside at Gracie Mansion, for all that is asking that question. And, I don't know. It seems New York City is a cesspool when it comes to politics. New York State is a cesspool. You need to look over your shoulders, because if you're in that game, I mean, your worst enemy could be friends with your best friend. I mean, that's how this works. Because why would anyone in a camp of a Steve Bannon want to even talk to Eric Adams, who was always for open borders? He stated that the city's official position was that the border should remain open. He wanted to have Rikers Island specifically be open for Donald Trump if he was convicted and the judge remanded him on the spot. He said, oh, well, the commissioner's got that. He didn't go against it. He didn't say this would be a disaster and that we can't handle having a former president in jail. He just sat there and went along with the crowd because that's who he is. So whether it's Bannon or anyone in the, Republican orbit, social media influence, whatever you want to call it, that is jumping on this bandwagon, history will look back at you and say, what the hell were you thinking? And you want to know why? Because we have one other thing that is occurring at this moment that should be at the top of the list. The ongoing scandals in the administration, and the latest one that engulfed the New York City Police Department. And it's every single day something is being trickled out that you didn't know about or had an idea about. So let's get to the latest that has been trickling out. So here's a post by yours truly, and it states, allegedly, numerous pictures of naked women may have been stored at the residences of disgraced former NYPD Chief of Department Jeffrey Maddrey and taken in the raid. And some of the pictures allegedly were some members of the NYPD committing acts of debauchery. Plot thickens. And there's a picture of, what do you want to call this? The Consofrito crew, the, nepotism, cronyism network. But a lot of people here are going to have a lot of questions to answer in the very foreseeable future. Allegedly, there are pictures that were in possession of Jeffrey Maddrey that involve some acts of debauchery on these pictures and naked women. Usually there's no crime here, right? I mean, it's somebody's personal business. So I'm not one to try to pry at this, but what makes this interesting is those are naked NYPD employees that are on some of these pictures. That's what's being alleged here, and that we know that the feds went to Jeffrey Maddrey's residence and took out a ton of things. Not just one residence, but multiple residences. This is very troubling. And the word I got from some sources is it doesn't look good in regards to whatever was taken from that office. May I remind everyone, over the weekend, they took a phone from one of his drivers or former drivers, which was Detective Ingrid Sanders, reported by the New York Post. And apparently, as you know, she was promoted by rocket fuel. She got 3 promotions in 2 years, and you wondered, how the hell did that even happen? Well, this scandal has a lot of implications on the mayor. No one wants to mention his name, but Eric, as you know, did party all the time with Jeffrey Maddrey and a bunch of other cohorts of theirs in the upper echelon, the NYPD ranks, at everyone's favorite shuttered nightclub in the Bronx, Consofrito, which, of course, has allegations of human trafficking. Should any of what you're hearing right now whether it is 100% a fact or being alleged, or there are sources, saying that, oh, this stuff is disturbing. Is any of this surprising? At one point, I would have told you, you sound crazy. But the more I dug into this administration, this Consofrito network, Eric Adams, none of this surprises me. And at this point, it shouldn't surprise any of you either. More to come on all of this. Some of this stuff is quite disturbing. I just hope that the men and women in the New York City Police Department, and I'm talking about the boots on the ground, the guys that have to stand on a platform in transit looking at subway carts, it feels like it's 1,000 degrees down there. They're standing there and then being questioned about 1 hour in overtime. These are the people, the men and women that New York City relies upon to keep their public safety in check and to actually not get assaulted on the train, not get assaulted out there when they're just walking around. They're the ones that get abused. Look at what you're hearing coming from the top. This is very alarming. And there's very much so implications on Eric Adams. Because you know what? What does Eric Adams know? Was Eric Adams around? Is Eric Adams participating in this stuff? Because remember, he's the mayor. And he always says, he loves all his people. They're great people. He knows them. He's known them for a long time. And you see him pictured at parties with them. So this is an ongoing scandal that we're going to be, head deep in and bringing out as much of the facts as we can. So with that being said, I hope everybody has a great morning, afternoon, and night. Tune in for the next episode of the Sal Greco Show. And I bid adieu and goodbye.